playground. Hooray!
It's Jeff Zito. Welcome to another episode of Celebrity Jobber. We talk to famous people, and we find out if it wasn't for them being famous, what would they be doing? Because, you know, it's one big break that gives you the fame, that gives you your career path, and that big break doesn't happen. Well, who knows? Our next guest is considered one of the greatest rock drummers of all time. I mean, he's mentioned with guys like Bill Ward of Black Sabbath and Neil Peart from Rush, John Bonham, Led Zeppelin, Keith Moon from The Who, major player in the world of rock and metal, and just so happens to be a good buddy of mine. My most famous friend, Shannon Larkin, drummer of Godsmack, joins us this week on Celebrity Jobber. You know, this is kind of funny. I'm getting a phone call from you, and you said, hey, I'm on my roof. It looks like rain. And I just wanted to put that out there because I don't know if any of fans of Godsmack would know that you're on your... What are you doing on your roof?
Well, you know, we had a little hurricane come by, you know. And while I was lucky, I mean, I was kind of bummed out because I did lose one shingle. But otherwise, I was very, very, very lucky.
Right.
And what I did was when I bought this house, it had brand new roof, and the shingles were pink, and I'm like, pink isn't really my color,
right?
You know. And
right.
So I researched and looked into shingle paint, and they indeed make a shingle paint, and it also reflects the sun. And so it helps your energy bill, everything. So I painted the whole thing, and that's all that saved my shingles. With this
really?
hurricane.
One shingle. That's amazing. That's good luck.
I lost one shingle. But what did happen was the tar from the winds blow, like it you can see on the ends, it peeled them up a little, and then the rains beat in there at 120 miles per hour. And next thing you know, they ran black all down my gray roof.
Oh boy!
And it looked like I'm living in Compton. So I'm like, I gotta get up there with the power sprayer, which is what I'm doing now. Which is an awkward thing because the power sprayer, pressure washer, you know, you got to plug it in and it's hooked up to a hose. So I had to like put nails, you know, in different spots on the roof to hold the machine and the. It's been a exciting morning.
So, are you the kind of guy? I mean, you should be hiring. You should hire somebody to do this. Are you the kind of guy that likes to do like the house projects and, you know, redoing your bathroom yourself? And
well, it's all outdoor work, but yes, I'm totally that guy. I've built turtle ponds, koi ponds with my own two hands. I've planted I have like lots of bamboo and shady ladies and my God, a maple. I planted up. I've got a weeping willow. I've got a rainbow eucalyptus. And you know, I moved to North Fort Myers. Oh man, like almost 6 years ago, and
right.
I've never planted anything in my life. And then, you know, I'm a touring guy all my life, and then all of a sudden, the pandemic hits, and I'm finding myself at home, and I'm like, hey, and it turns out. It's a Zen thing, and I love it, and I got a green thumb, and I'm growing all kinds of cool stuff.
You're pretty handy. I don't think people know that. People don't know that about you. I was thinking about this the other day. You know, you are mentioned as like one of the greatest rock drummers of all time. You're mentioned in the same sentence as Keith Moon and John Bonham and Neil Peart and Bill Ward. You ever think about that? You know, you're on your roof pressure washing your shingles right now, but you ever think about that? You're mentioned in the same, and I know you're a pretty humble guy, so I'm not trying to, but I just think it's pretty incredible. You're mentioned in the same sentence as those guys. You ever think about that once when you're alone and maybe burning one?
I do, and I'm extremely grateful for it. You know, I can't. I worked my ass off from the age of 8 until now, and you know what I mean. So I'll take it, man. And the best thing to me, as I get older and the band's guys over 20 years now making hit records with a band. You know, back in the day we would go see Judas Priest or Rush even, and they were in their like 30s, and we're like, look at those old dudes, because we're like 16, 17 years old, and now I realize, wow, I'm that old dude, man. So, what I take, the positive I take out of it is simply, God, yeah, being mentioned in the same sentence, as one of my heroes,
Pretty incredible. It's definitely incredible. When you said you've been at this, you've been working your ass off since you were 8 years old. I mean, think about this. You form a band for the first. You start playing drums when you're 8, or did you form a band when you're 8? Because I know you're like 10 years old playing in your first band. Or Wrathchild formed when you were like 10 years old. Is that true?
That is true. My first show, technically I was 12, but this guy Terry Carter got a guitar and I got a drum set. I was 8, he was 10. 2 years later, man, we were both, I guess, naturals at it. And he, I can straight say, is a prodigy. Like he's that dude. Like I remember clearly 1978, and we were at school, and Van Halen had come out, the first record, and every guitarist, every musician just went, what? And and Terry Carter 3 days later is playing Eruption,
Wow.
And every kid in school was like, so that dude's a prodigy, which, talk about full circle. Tony Rombola left my blues band, the Apocalypse Blues Revival, and I got Terry Carter from Wrathchild.
You're kidding me.
And the cool part about that whole thing is, as you might have heard, it's Smack's final record, and I'll talk more about that because we're not breaking up or anything. But no more records, and we pretty much can do what we want. And like I said, we'll talk more about that. But the coolest part of the story is, Rombola was like, I can't be in 2 bands anymore.
It's a lot, and I'm sure he wasn't doing it at 8 years old or 10 years old like you were doing.
Exactly.
All right, where'd you grow up? You grew up in a strange combination of states, right? Like border of, I want to say like PA, West Virginia, Maryland, like right in that little vicinity, correct?
Yes, Martinsburg, West Virginia, right in the eastern panhandle. And it was a beautiful thing because Maryland, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Virginia were all like surrounding my little panhandle.
Right.
And so, Baltimore, Maryland was an hour and a half away, and Washington, D.C. was also an hour and a half away. So I had 2 major cities. So by the time I played my first show when I was 12, Terry was 14, and we had, of course, a 17-year-old bass player, an 18-year-old singer. So now I'm 12, and I'm hanging out with 17, 18-year-olds.
Right.
18-year-olds.
Oh, boy.
And it's the 70s, so what the rest. And so anyway, that was my whole thing. Wow, and they turned me on, as well as Terry's older brothers, to like all the stuff. It was all Zeppelin, Rush, AC/DC was huge. And then, that's how it all started. But by the time I was 13, Zito, I started playing clubs with my band.
Wow.
And it was 12 years later when I was 20 years old and Terry Carter was 22, we got signed to Atlantic and put out a couple records. Didn't make it, as far as it goes, but we got to tour with like Testament, Pantera, all these cool bands, in the early 90s, late 80s. And that was when metal was, king, and thrash had been invented by the great Metallica in 83, I'm one of those musicians that have been lucky and have never worked a day of job.
Okay, so that was one of my questions. I mean, like, outside of music, have you ever had a regular job? Have you ever gotten paid to do anything other than music?
Never.
Never.
And I moved out of my house when the week I turned 18. I love both my parents. I just had a great upbringing. I have no drama, middle class, blue collar family, whatever. I love my dad and mom. But when I was 18, I had a girlfriend, and I moved out. And I never have worked a job in my life. I always supported myself from playing those drums, and that's why to this day I'm the most grateful, humble dude, because I understand how lucky I am.
Do you ever think back, like even before you got the break with Godsmack, and you were a working drummer in some pretty cool bands, Wrathchild America, and a little stint with Ugly Kid Joe and Casey Chaos's Amen. These are pretty good bands, and probably could make a pretty decent living. But I'm thinking maybe at some point you're in your, say, 30s before Godsmack calls you. And did you ever think, like when you were in your 30s, like, okay, man, I'm probably getting to the end of the road on this stuff. What am I going to do next? Have you ever thought about what you would do other than being a musician?
I not only thought about it, but everything is a story. And so, like, at the end of my tenure with Amen, Casey Chaos, who is a punk rocker dude. It doesn't, age means nothing. That dude is a punk and, lived it. And so I found myself married and had a 2-year-old daughter. And I'm in a punk band making $42,000 a year.
Right.
But to make that kind of money and pay my rent, we had to be gone we toured 8 months out of the year.
Right.
And
that's a tough life.
It was a tough life. And I made 2 records with them, one on Roadrunner, one on Virgin Records. Went out like that. And that I think I was 32. And like I said, I just had my daughter. And I'm like, I can't be a punk rock. It's a real punk band, and I can't live like this. It was chaos. That dude, it was literally chaos. Blood at shows, This
right.
dude was crazy. And my drums, everything was just a mess, man. And so I quit. And my mom was a beautician, and my dad invested some money and made our basement in West Virginia, chairs in there and sinks, and made it a shop. Bonnie's Hair Harbor, my mom. And so I remember I ran around all the neighborhoods. We made flyers to advertise, and she got a business. And so I grew up downstairs where my drums were, by the way, in the den. And my mom had a couple stations down there and had a hair salon. So I quit Amen, and I enrolled in a Santa Barbara beauty school. I mean, I literally enrolled. I was like, and by that time, I have to mention this because, I'd like I said, I made I did some cool tours, like on Ugly Kid Joe. We toured with Van Halen and the Pretenders, and it was just. So I lived a lot of my dreams, but furthermore, and the main reason why I could have given up the sticks is simply because I played with Sabbath. It was one show, but I was like,
you did it.
You could give all the money and gold records and all the shit, all the stuff, that I never had, that I never got. But I got so much accolades and so many respect from my peers and other drummers. Whether I can go to the mall, nobody recognizes me. But if I go to the NAMM show, and everybody knows me because it's all drummers and musicians. And that was what I strove for all my life anyway, man. And to make cool music, cool bands, that was my thing. And so I felt, even at that point, I did it.
And you had no problem walking away, getting your license, and becoming a entrepreneur in, what would you have done? Just like dyed hair? Or like you said you were going to be a beautician, went to beautician school. What would it have been that you did?
Listen, man, that was near the time, probably, 2001 time. I'd played for Ozzy. I was still getting Christmas cards from Sharon and Ozzy. So I called Sharon. I told her my plan. I'm like, what's your advice? And would Ozzy let me cut his hair, take a picture? And then, so I was going to do like a rock and roll one on Melrose.
Okay.
And have, I know, by the way, every rock star, and I'm pretty friendly with everybody. And so all I say, like Phil from Pantera, I could easily call that dude, hey, let me cut your hair and take a picture. I'm going to open this shop. He'd be like, yeah, dude. Anyway, I was going to have like a rock and roll hair salon with me cutting every rock star's hair.
Wow.
And it would have been a cool thing, and I could play rock music and at the place. And, I also am a drummer and at the time, like I said, I'd done some session where I did Glassjaw, I did, Vanilla Ice, all these session gigs that were kick-ass records on drums.
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to stop you right now and just tell you that as far as Glassjaw, Worship and Tribute, probably one of the greatest albums of all time to a lot of people, and to know that you were the drummer on that record is pretty impressive.
It's insane. And so, again, I could, even though I was going to just not be a band guy anymore and try and open a shop in L.A. and do that life, I felt that I could still do session work and still play on records for
right.
extra money and to get my yayas out, man, because like I said, even if I quit tomorrow, I still got drums here that I would play every day.
Right.
For the love of it, for the therapy of it.
What about, when this all ends? Look, you were just talking a little earlier, and I've wanted to talk to you for a few weeks now. You were overseas, so I start hearing the Godsmack is retiring. They got one more record, and then that's it. And I'm like, whoa! I'm out of the loop.
That's incorrect.
Okay.
The word retiring has never come out of any of our mouths.
Okay. Correct me. What was the statement?
Final record.
Final record.
Which means no cash grab tour, paid $600 because you'll never see us again. No. And no breaking up. The easiest way I can explain it, because people are like, then why wouldn't you keep making records? Oh, my God, your last record was the most successful record, all this stuff. Well, you make records, and at some point, and it's the only negative that I'm going to say, and I'll give you probably there's 3 or 4 good reasons why when we sat down and talked about making records and how long we've been making hit records. Like, we've never had a flop. That's one of the reasons. It'll happen because as bands, if you look historically, bands that just keep making, Judas Priest, whatever, it goes down, 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 and that's just life, right? Because it's just the way it is.
It's just the way it is.
And so we don't want that. We would rather go out on top. That's one reason. Second reason, which is the only negative reason, is age. I mean, we're in our 50s, dude. You know what I mean? And like I said, we got opening bands. I could be their dad, and we don't want to be the old dude. Hey, I'll say this. We respect and love the old guys still out there doing it at 68 or whatever, and gray hair, and more power to them. We don't want to be that. That's all. So
is this album Lighting Up the Sky, which comes out in February? This
is our best work there. Everybody says that. Dude, when you hear this, you will understand. It's got a little bit of every record in it. It's like it's a love letter to our whole career. Lyrically, all the songs. Sully Erna is my genius. That dude I can't express how great he is he's changed so much in the last 20 years, and I've watched this development of this dude who was basically a punk,
right.
when I joined the band, and now he's just he's truly a genius. I'm so lucky to have met that dude 15 years before I even joined his band.
And is this the last record, Shannon, or one more after this?
No, this is the final record, and like I said, it's like a love letter to our whole career.
Wow.
I mean, but that said, Sully's also a Boston guy, worships at the altar of Aerosmith. Aerosmith did this, and it was a great thing, because here's another reason, 3 out of the first 2. 1, age, 2, man, we don't want to decline and end up putting our last record out doesn't sell, you know what I mean? And so 3, there's pressure also.
Yeah.
When you're Godsmack and when you put new records out, and we put records out every 4 years too. That's another thing that my genius Sully did. That's so smart. So we'll have a year to write and record a record.
Right.
2 years to tour the crap out of it, and then a year apart.
Right.
To do things.
Smart.
And, with our pet, right?
And you don't get sick of each other. You don't hate each other's guts. It gives you time. It gives you space. You can hang out with your family, your friends. You can, defrag.
Yes, and you can, also get the excitement back when we get back together after a year not seeing each other.
Right.
And we're like, what's like that, dude?
Right.
That's right. Let's do this, bro.
So this album, Lighting Up the Sky, last album, final album, let me just mention this. The first single off that album, Surrender, and correct me if I'm wrong, currently #1 song in the country right now.
Right now and last week and hopefully next week.
Unbelievable.
It's a great song,
Unbelievable.
Man. That song was the first song that we wrote. And then we had like 3 months and we wrote 12, 13 songs. And then tragedy struck, and Sully, was in a long-term relationship that ended, and he said, yeah, I'm out of here, and left Florida, left the studio, went back up to Boston. He said, have a nice summer, guys, right? Well, that kind of strife in Sully Erna's life, and he goes home and writes, man, and when he came back a few months later, all right, I'm ready, let's get back together, and finish this damn record. We only used 3 songs out of the initial 12 or 13 we had written.
You used all the new Sully songs that he had written when he was going through this personal breakup. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Shannon, Sully Erna is the kind of guy who succeeds, and when his back's against the wall, and I don't want this to come out the wrong way either, but I want to say, when he's going through some pain, because this seems to happen every 4 years, he goes through some kind of pain, and incredible, he's able to harness that and write incredible music out of his pain. Is that true?
That's true, and that's what great artists do. He's a great one, and every time, man, it happens because we're also dear friends. I don't know how many bands could say that have over 20 years under their belt, but
not many.
We've gotten even better friends, way better friends than 10 years ago, and so when he goes through these kind of things, we're like, damn, that sucks for our boy, And then me and Tony Robbio look at each other and go, we're gonna have some hits.
Yep, here comes a big record. So with this being the final Godsmack album, not retiring, I just want to get that out there, not retiring, but this is the last Godsmack album. You're going to still continue to tour, though, correct?
Yes, and my final point of the 4 points of why vinyl record. Well, we got 12 #1 hits, and God, I don't even know how many made the top 5, top 10, but we can only play, we're in our 50s, we can only play for an hour and a half, 2 hours, And so every show, we're meeting fans after the show. Why didn't you play this? Why didn't you play Love, Hate? Why didn't you play this? And we're like, we don't have room in our set. God, we can't even play the hits that we have over 25 years.
You got too many hits. That's a good problem to have, bro.
But, but I'm not saying this, egotistically.
No, I know.
We've been around forever, and we're in active rock, man. We're not like there with Post Malone or Weekend,
right.
You know what I mean? In front of all these billions of streams and viewers and shit. But we have our domain that we've lived in for 25 years of making hit records at Active Rock, where we are the big fish, and we're the old guys now, and I'm super proud of it. And so, just like Aerosmith did, we're just announcing, hey, no more records.
This is a dream come true. This is what every band dreams of doing, and you guys have done it.
Well, like I said, some bands don't, and they continue to make records well into their, like Judas Priest, I'll say again, who I love, by the way, and I love, legend. But they keep making records and touring. They're a couple of the guys, Glenn, now it's just a mess.
Right.
And so my thinking is, well, but kudos to them for just, pushing forward through all. But we're not that band. Because we're not selling anything now. We have all this beautiful music, and so there's where we win. Now we can basically play when we want, and when we feel, I will say this, when we feel like too old to be representing our freaking Godsmack band, You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to play anymore.
Right.
And we won't announce it. We won't do some cash grab bands that say, oh, final show, and then you got to pay $300 or $600 for a ticket to see them because you think it's going to be their last time. And then, usually 5 years later they get back together anyway. But
are you kidding? You know how much I paid to see Kiss's farewell tour in 1999, bro? And they're still going.
Yeah, but it's not Kiss without Peter and Ace, and we got to see them at least.
And that's who I saw. I saw the original lineup in 1999 for the farewell tour. So at least I feel good about that.
Me too, Zito. I was there. I got a sign. They were selling Peter Criss drum heads, and he would put the name of the city on it. And I went up to Virginia with my best friend yet and saw, who's a huge Kiss fan. And we saw it, man, and I bought a Peter Criss drum head. And he signed, I think it was, Arlington or Largo, Maryland.
You know what my favorite Godsmack song is of all time? You're probably you're gonna be surprised because it's not a real heavy banger. But my favorite Godsmack song of all time is "Touché." And what I find interesting about that song is that you have another vocalist also on that song, John Costco, and recently reached out to me a couple weeks ago, and he's like, hey, check out my new band. And I thought it was great, and I just told him, I was like, hey, I just want to tell you, the song that you do at Godsmack, Touché, it's one of my favorite songs of all time. And I wanted to tell you that because I thought it was pretty interesting that he just reached out a couple weeks ago.
Well, yeah, man, because you know who the guitar player is? Scott Creeling.
That's right.
He's very prolific too. He'll write 10 songs, and then you can. There's going to be 2 or 3 really good ones out of it. You know what I mean? And I'm not sure how it was that he hooked up with Costco, but it's a great match for those two guys.
Sounds great. Yeah,
it does sound great. I'm real proud of John and Scott.
The band's called Revel at Dusk. If you're listening and you're interested in checking that out, I suggest you do so. I just can't believe that we've known each other for as long as we have, probably a good 15 years now, and I never, ever knew in my whole life that you almost could have been cutting hair and being a beautician. And I think it's still a good thing maybe for the future. You ever think about, when things do slow down, maybe do that.
Zito, that's always the next question. Well, if Godsmack is just going to tour maybe like once a year and we don't have to cycle tour, so we would just play when we want. What's next, Shannon? And I'm like, Apocalypse Blues Revival, who has Terry Carter now, from Wrathchild.
Right.
So full circle, what do I do? First song I ever wrote at 10 years old, Face in Reality it was called, was with this guy. And now here I am, 55, and I've written a whole new record with this guy, and it's insane. And my singer I had Dave Fortman come in and produce the vocals, Shane, who has been my drum tech for 26 years, which is another story. I put 3 records out under the Apocalypse moniker, but the truth is I've never been able to tour or support them in any way, except for a couple Kenny Wayne Shepherd tours that we got to jump on for 2 weeks or whatever. But I've never been able to support this thing. And now I'm going to have the time in my life. I'm going to do the Apocalypse, and I got a killer band, and I'll be able to go on the road with it, and go and play. I'll play clubs. I don't care. I'm playing music for people. I shut my eyes in that band. It's another thing.
I'm just telling you, though, I'm looking at myself. I wear a hat all the time. I need, like, a new look. And if I could get my hair cut by you, I mean, it could be like a whole new rebirth of me.
Well, it's funny. I cut my friend's hair. I cut Sully's hair. He cuts mine, too, by the way. we like cutting hair. But, yeah, I mean, I can still cut hair. I had this other dream, like I said, I built these ponds.
Yeah, you've got like koi ponds and turtles in these ponds. It's pretty relaxing going out in your backyard.
Yeah, well, I've expanded over the pandemic, and what I did, I couldn't do this myself, and so I hired a company, Lombardo Landscaping, and they make these beautiful, beautiful ponds, right? And I watched and witnessed how they did it, because having built my own, right? And so I upgrade, like now my koi pond's 33,000 gallons.
Wow.
And I got a 5,000 gallon turtle pond, which my last one that I built was 1,000. So I upped everything, the whole game back here in the backyard. You'll see.
All right. Well, I'm gonna come visit you in the next couple of weeks for sure, because I have not done like I've done for the last 4 records, and that would be we'd go over to your house or to your studio, and we would kind of get buzzed a little bit, and we would listen to the whole new album before it comes out. And I'm glad that it hasn't come out yet, because I still have time to do that with you, and I cherish those moments with you over the years, because you're my most famous friend. Who's your most famous friend?
I would say probably Rick Allen.
Rick Allen from Def Leppard.
Everyone knows who Rick Allen is, and I just started helping his. He has a foundation called the Raven Drum Foundation, and it helps veterans. And he's lived in L.A. for 20 years. He's an American citizen. And, L.A., wow, the homeless, and most of them 80% veterans, and it's sad. And so Rick wanted to do something to help. He starts this Raven Drum Foundation. And so a bunch of us, that's how I've gotten to actually meet a lot of my idols and see all these kind of people, is through this and just going and doing benefits and donating stuff to try and make money for veterans,
Right.
It's a righteous charity. And through that, I've gotten to know Rick, and he's just a guy like me, a sweet dude that loves life,
Right.
And he's, his tragedy of losing an arm and then coming back.
Unbelievable.
That's not just musician stuff. He's like a hero.
That's just an incredible story, and it's I talked to this guy on my podcast last week who's a voiceover actor, who's the voice of Optimus Prime, and you hear him on TV and movie trailers, and he's blind, and he also surfs, and he's got like 1.75 million subscribers on YouTube as the blind surfer, and I just feel like the biggest piece of shit. I'm like, wow, does that not inspire you when people have these challenges that they have to overcome and they succeed, not only succeed, but, take it to the very limit. It is truly amazing. And I think it's truly amazing that you told me you never made $1 in your entire life in anything other than playing the drums. I think that is absolutely incredible.
It's been a charmed life, but a hard life. You know what I mean? And the pandemic came and did something really good for me, because I toured, like I said, ever since literally I was 16 years old, and I dropped out of school to go on tour.
Wow.
And I've toured ever since as passion and income. It's like how I've lived. But so I'm blessed. But it was a hard road, and in the end,
you earned it.
I earned it, and man, I'm not done. I got 2 more years out there. The pandemic just really let me realize, though, because when that went down, and all of us musicians that were lifers and long-term tourers,
man, yeah,
we were all of a sudden we're stuck at home, and we're like, and I didn't know, am I going to go crazy and have to drink again or something?
Right.
And it was quite the opposite, man. I just got into my yard and planting and building and just doing, and it became, by the time we went to tour again, I was like, I'd rather be home. I mean, I love, again, if I hadn't such a long run of it already, I wouldn't be saying that. But feeling now, I'd love what my genius has come up with. Like, I can't help calling him my genius. He's so smart now.
Man, you guys are yin and yang, though. I mean, with one, there's the other. And I think, as much of a genius as Sully Erna is, you are equally as much of a genius, and I think helps him.
thank you for those kind words, Zito. I appreciate it. And I get to the point about the ponds, but as a career, I could always do Larkin's Lagoon.
Oh, okay.
And come and build like super rad ponds for people.
Okay. All right.
But that could be something.
It is great catching up with you. What an incredible life. I really like the most part about talking to you, because I said we've known each other for a long time. I really didn't know anything about the beauty school. I didn't know that you came from a great home. I didn't know that mom and dad were great to you, and you had no problems growing up. You didn't have that teenage angst. You from a middle class home, a loving family. I mean, I think that's cool, man. It's cool for people to know.
And do you know my father, in West Virginia, when I was starting to play clubs, 13 years old, well, you couldn't get a work permit until you were 16.
Right.
So my dad had to come to these clubs, and I would see him in the back sleeping as I'm jamming on the third set, 2 a.m.
See that?
And without that, my dad, he passed, but he was my hero and my best friend, and that dude went above and beyond, and he was a Notre Dame graduate. And when I told him I'm dropping out of school for this, and he was smart enough to know that if he didn't give his blessing, I would do it anyway.
Right.
And then he'd lose me as a son, and the love that we had.
Right.
He knew. He understood how important music was, even at a young age, to me.
Wow.
To allow me to drop out of school. The only thing he did say was get your GED and score a B or higher, which I did. Got an 89 on it.
There you go. You kept up your end of the bargain.
Yeah, man. But
awesome.
Yeah, my old man. Without him, I wouldn't have had this charmed life. So
that's awesome.
That's the truth.
Awesome talking to you, man. Let's catch up here real soon.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, I'll see you real soon, man.
You got it. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Talk soon.
You think of guys in bands, and they've had a tough childhood growing up, and maybe some, alcohol abuse or addiction with the family, and not this guy. Great home life, loves his mom and dad. They did everything for him. His mom, of course, a beautician, did his hair, all the guys in the band's hair. Dad, hauling him out to the bars because he's 12 years old. He's not allowed to work, but the old man bringing him out there, just kind of like a normal family where a kid's, playing baseball on the weekends or soccer, and the parents are coming out there and setting up the tent and packing a lunch and supporting the kid that way. A little different with Shannon Larkin and his household. If not for that call from Sully Erna and changing his life by becoming the member of a band that has sold millions and millions of albums, over a dozen number one hits, if not for that call, we could have been talking to a guy who is a hairdresser, okay? Which is a great life. Probably make a lot of money being a hairdresser. And I don't know, maybe it's in his future. I'd like for him to, do something with my hair helmet. It wouldn't hurt, that's for sure. And now finding his love of building koi ponds. Maybe that's something that Shannon will do when he finally hangs it up. But he's not hanging it up. Godsmack is not retiring. His other band, the Apocalypse Blues Revival, which he's going to be able to spend more time doing and recording new stuff, and still going to be touring with Godsmack. But their final record is coming out in February. And, man, just a great life and a super nice guy. One of the greats. My most famous friend, salt of the earth, Shannon Larkin from Godsmack. The guy never made $1 in his life outside of playing drums in a band. To me, that's incredible. So there's another episode of Celebrity Jobber. Please rate, review, comment on Apple Podcast. Subscribe. If you don't like it, don't subscribe. But if you do, be nice of you. I'm Jeff Zito, and we'll see you next time with another episode of Celebrity Jobber. Thanks for listening.